All right, Chris, if you want to provide us your introduction.
Sure. So my name is Chris Worthy, and I'm running for Santa Clarita City Council. For those of you who don't know me, I am a family man. I live here in Santa Clarita with my wife and 3 children. I moved here in 2015. Love it here so much, and I have such a penchant for public service that I decided to run for City Council. A little more about me: I have a bachelor's in nuclear engineering. I also have a master's in public administration. I work for the City of Los Angeles, the Department of Water and Power. There I serve as their chief safety engineer, where I work with other levels of government in coordinating their OSHA program, quality assurance, and quality control program. Some of my priorities would be on City Council would be to COVID-19 relief. I believe that the city is going to face a budget shortfall, and the small businesses are going to need help and direction to get through this hard times that we're having. I also think that the city of Santa Clarita deserves its own public safety office or police force, and we should break away from the sheriffs. The homelessness issue in Santa Clarita needs to be dealt with in more concrete and direct action. And also traffic has become a little out of control, and we need to do everything we can to get rid of it. I understand that Santa Clarita is a big and diverse city as far as, I want to say, geographically. And I think I can bring all of the neighborhoods together and move us forward in the right direction and make Santa Clarita more awesome than it already is. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chris. Okay, so with the cards here, I cut the deck. I pick a card. The number is 7. So I'm going to go down from Chris. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and ask Dr. Akash if he would like to do his introduction now. All right, Doctor.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Well, thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Rick. And thank you to Canyon Country Advisory Committee. Hello, Santa Clarita, for welcoming us and giving us a privilege to come here and share our views. Friends, my name is Dr. Akash Ahuja. I'm a psychiatrist by profession, and I work for California Department of Corrections and Rehab in Lancaster. I live here in Santa Clarita with my wife and 2 children, ages 8 and 10 years old. And we have been living here since 2014. Now, friends, I love Santa Clarita. Santa Clarita is a great city, and it has given us a lot. And I'm running for city council because I do believe that our city has the potential to do even better with the right kind of leadership, with the right solution orientedness, and with logical and objective leadership. Guys, we are going through difficult times in the city. We are going through, as we all know, some racial, ideological, and political divide. And that's okay, Alan. Political divide. And also the coronavirus has been very devastating for our city. Our small businesses are suffering big time. Our kids are suffering because they are at home and they are not able to do well. We have homelessness situation. We have traffic congestion issues, and we have a lot of things going on, which can be sorted out in a logical and objective manner. I count myself as a very objective person who can talk across the aisle. I'm a uniter. I want to have everybody on the table and come up with solution. I think I'll be the only person who can talk to the other political party person, even if they don't agree with me. And just want to make sure that I'll share more ideas of mine. So thank you so much. This is Dr. Akash Ahuja.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Now will be Douglas.
Okay. 2 minutes. Thank you for the forum, Canyon Country Advisory Committee. My name's Douglas Frazier. I'm a Canyon Country resident. Been in Santa Clarita 25 years. 15 of those years I've lived in a manufactured home community. When we've appealed our rent adjustments to the city, I was a spokesperson. So I've been a servant to the community for a while. Also served on the rent adjustment panel in the city capacity as a member for several years and as a chairperson the last 3. The experience I had dealing with the city and the staff has led me to run for city council. I've had some disrespectful and invasive ways that the city has treated the citizens, and I want to be known as a citizen-friendly candidate for the council member and not suppress the opinions and ideas of the public. If you've experienced this, like what the vets went through when they tried to put the memorial at the Memorial Park or the BMX bike group, the city just seemed to not be able to make a decision with that. Recently, I've been unsuccessful in trying to gain some changes to the affordable housing situation, and the city has actually been collaborating against me. I got some emails through the e-request in which the community development staff and so I want to be known as a city citizen-friendly candidate. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Now, Selena?
Yes. Can you hear me, Alan?
I certainly can. You're coming
Great.
through loud and clear.
Great. Thank you. My name is Selena Thomas. I am a 10-year resident in Santa Clarita. I am a mother of 3 teenage daughters. My kids have gone through the schools here in Santa Clarita, and one I have now at COC as a sophomore. I have been successful in business here. I own my own company, 6 Degrees HR Consulting. I provide support to small to medium-sized companies in this community. And the reason why I'm running is to help support in their recovery, which will translate to recovery for the community. The return to schools is definitely a priority for me as a mother with students at Saugus High School, as well as the need for inclusiveness and engagement for citizens at the city council level. I hope that I represent the diversity in this community from the public sector, business sector, softball mom sector. There are so many opportunities that I have to relate to many people in this community as a singular candidate that has a proven track record of support, and I am excited to be a part of this field. I appreciate the Canyon Country Advisory Committee for the invite, and happy to see the other candidates. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason, you're up, my good man.
Oh, thank you, sir. Good evening, everybody. To Alan, Rick, and the Canyon Country Advisory Committee, thank you for having us all here tonight. I am Jason Gibbs. I'm a lifelong Californian, born and raised in Santa Barbara. I spent the better part of 10 years up at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, earning both a bachelor's and a master's degree in mechanical engineering while starting to work full-time as an engineer. Since then, I've spent 15 years now with a company called GP Strategies Corporation. I serve as the Deputy Director and Principal Engineer. I specialize in launch support operations, more specifically for the Delta IV and Atlas V launch vehicles. We always joke that our job is to get a rocket 6 inches off the ground, and after that, it's got to know where space is on its own. I met my wife my last year in college, Chandra, who's a biomedical engineer and has had an 8-year now career with Boston Scientific Corporation. And she was the onus that's brought us here to Santa Clarita. In 2016, we welcomed our son, Aiden, who's now 4, and our daughter subsequently in 2018, Avery. And they're the onus that sparked my interest in being involved in our community, learning about local governance, and trying to find a way that I can help in my own capacities to make a better city and to make a better environment for our children to grow up and live. Since then, I've gotten very involved in our nonprofit world. I currently serve on the executive board for the Wish Foundation, for the Valley Industry Association, the advisory board for the Boys and Girls Club. I'm now on the vice chair for the Measure W steering committee for the Santa Clara River watershed. And I'm also part of the Hart District Advisory Group. I think it's important being very involved in our community the last 4 years on all the different sectors that we deal with to be able to represent Santa Clarita in all essences, from education, understanding water, and understanding what it is that Santa Clarita does to partner with these organizations to make a better Santa Clarita. My priorities include restarting quickly and safely our economy, continuing to limit our long-term liabilities like what we face with pension obligations, and continuing to grow and build business here in Santa Clarita while creating a public safety commission. Thank you.
Okie doke. Kevin?
Got me. Let me know when you're ready.
You're on.
So first of all, thanks to Alan and Rick and everyone tuning in the Canyon Country Advisory Committee. My name's Kelvin Driscoll. My wife, Javane, and I moved to Santa Clarita in 2016. We have a 3-year-old daughter, Ava. And to the other candidates, forgive me, your 3-year-olds typically come alive right when you hop on a Zoom call. So if you see me reacting, that's who I'm reacting to. We are both social workers. I received my master's degree in social work and a master's degree in public administration. And right out of grad school, went to work in the nonprofit sector, working to house homeless women and children in Los Angeles. Today, I work for the County of Los Angeles. I've been with the county for 7 years, and I've served in 5 different county departments. I say at the pinnacle of my career, I served as deputy to Los Angeles County Supervisor Janice Hahn, advising her on issues of child welfare and human services, to my position today with the Los Angeles County Department of Public Social Services as a director for our General Relief Program. I'm excited to be in this race, and as you'll hear, I'm sure from the candidates on the meeting tonight, we are focused on a number of issues, some personal, some professional, and I'm excited to get engaged and answer questions regarding our recovery, I'm sure, regarding how we deal with issues of housing affordability and homelessness, how we deal with issues of development and protection of open spaces and infrastructure and traffic, and all of the issues I'm sure you will hear come up a number of times tonight on the call. But as you will, I'm sure also hear, the central thrust for me is thinking about Ava and all of our future children in a city that we love and that we call home. And so again, just thank you to the Canyon Country Advisory Committee for allowing us to be here tonight to talk about the issues. And to those viewing on YouTube, thanks for spending some time with us and allowing us to step into your home.
All right, Mr. Dean.
I'm glad I'm not last because I would take that personal.
All right. Go ahead.
I'm running for city council because as a founding father of our city, I've always had a great vision of our city from its past and to its future. I've always had concerns with the way our city was moving forward. You know, we live in a great city. It's not just one area. It's all areas as a whole. And just as symbolic, all areas need to have the same concern. This I see is not happening. Our city is not a stagnant city. It is alive and it needs leadership with a vision of a future direction. I am that leadership. I see our city of the future with affordable housing programs that we desperately need, with no senior or veteran homelessness, a business-friendly city. When we support our businesses, we support our city. Our city needs to support our businesses and help our businesses get back into business and move forward and open their doors. Also, addressing crime and drugs by educating our youth to their adverse effects is a high priority of mine, has been ever since I was a teacher with the Hart School District. I will continue to monitor the cleanup of the 996-acre toxic Whitaker Burmite property that is located in the middle of our city. And I will continue to work on the Cross Valley connector roads as noted in our general plan, like Santa Clarita Parkway, Golden Valley Road, Magic Mountain Parkway, and Via Princesa. And another thing I find very important is I want to see more amenities for Canyon Country in the way that downtown Newhall has been updated. And we need to do that. It's something we need to do for years now. I've lived in Canyon Country for out here 37 years. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Boydston?
Thank you to Rick Drew and Alan Ferdman and all of the members of the Canyon Country Advisory Committee. It is my pleasure and honor to be able to speak to the citizens of Santa Clarita and the people who are going to vote and decide who is going to sit on the Santa Clarita City Council this time around. I'm running for the Santa Clarita City Council because I came here about 40 years ago with my family. And they moved to this area because this area was a safe place to be. It was a clean place to be. And it was a great place to raise your family. And that's why I've stayed here. And that's why I met my wife here and married her 28 years ago, Ingrid, who's a public school teacher. And we were blessed to have a daughter who is now a student at College of the Canyon after going through all the great public schools here in Santa Clarita. Another thing that happened is I had a thirst to serve the people of Santa Clarita. And so I actually decided to run for the city council. And I ran several times before I was actually got on the city council, appointed the first time, and then elected the second time. So I spent 6 years serving the people of Santa Clarita. And I want to make sure that I get back on the city council at this time because this is a time of great unrest. And there's a lot of concern. And I am the leadership that can take us through this because I've been there. And I want you all to know that no matter who you are, what background or party you're from, I will serve you as I did the last time around. So thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Okie dokie. So I drew a card while I was behind the screen here. And Jason Gibbs will get the first question.
Fix. Where's the dice? Hey, Rick. Good to see you.
Hey, nice to see you guys.
I'm never going to get over this, I can tell.
No, that's it. No more dice comments. I'm good at them.
We developed these questions through collaboration of several members of the Canyon Country Advisory Committee and some of the public. I compiled them all, and each one, they're basically picked for each individual. So we're going to be asking 5 questions tonight per candidate. So Jason, your first question is, because I know this is important to you, how would you propose a solution to the CalPERS pension issues that you stated during the campaign?
No, thank you, Rick. So the biggest issue we have, obviously, is the city doesn't control how CalPERS handles the funding and how they handle their investments, but we are stuck in dealing with the consequences. When I say consequences, I mean, historically, for the last 10, 15 years, CalPERS has had a real problem hitting the return rates that they promises to the cities who participate. For a long time, it was 7.5%. And then in recent years, they lowered it to a 7% return rate. Every time that they don't make that number, and you've seen times where they hit 1%, 2%. When they miss those numbers, it goes back on the city who ends up having to flip the bill. So when they miss that number, they give a loan out to the city and say, by the way, you're going to have to pay that back at some point. The one thing that we've done in the city in a very smart way is we continue to limit liabilities as best we can. And I believe right now we sit somewhere at about 88% funded. I think it's critical that as we move forward, we try in the next 5 years to get to 100% funded. And the reason is that provides more long-term stability in what we have for expected costs so that we can plan for future building down the road. So we can plan for more infrastructure and not worry about getting hit with a large bill due to the inability of CalPERS to hit what it promises in terms of what it gives back. So for us, limiting our liability is paying down, getting to 100% funded, and allowing money to be freed up in order to go for internal infrastructure projects.
Thank you, Jason. Our next question will be for Kevin Driscoll. In reference to COVID, how would the city implement increased testing, and who'd pay for it? And specifically, how do you propose a contact tracing program to be started?
Yes, thanks, Rick, for that question. Two-parter. So I'll start first with the increase in testing. So I know right now we are leveraging partnerships with COC, and I think that those are great. I think we're not hitting capacity on this testing, and I think that the public messaging and the public education campaign around the importance for testing is the first way to go about that. And then thinking about how we leverage our relationships with our healthcare partners. So Henry Mayo, for example, in expanding their testing here in the city is important. But I do think that there's going to take consistent messaging from our leadership in adhering to the CDC guidelines and thinking about the importance of testing. I always like to link this to the constant call that we hear for reopening. And what I say is that these two are inextricably linked, right? So as we talk about reopening, our conversation also has to include testing and how testing is a central part of that. As to the contact tracing program, we see contact tracing programs being stood up right now in our public health department in Los Angeles County. I think it's going to take a concerted effort of our city council members to work more closely with the leaders of our public health department, like Dr. Ferrer, to think about how the city leverages youth and seniors and those who are looking for work right now to increase some of those training opportunities. And then we can leverage the infrastructure from the public health department to do contact tracing here specifically in Santa Clarita.
Thank you, Kevin. Our next question will be for Ken Dean. You previously stated traffic congestion could be improved by implementing bus egresses, taking stationary buses out of the right-of-way. How would you propose the city implement a project to make this a reality?
First of all, the city has to have a budget for doing this. And when they do their budgets and their proposed budgets for the year, they need to have a line item where they put funds into nothing more than bus turn-ins and bus turnouts. It's a major nightmare. I was talking to somebody today when I went to have breakfast, and I gave them my card, and on my card it says various things like traffic and bus turn-ins. And the husband came up to me at my table and said, you know something, I'm looking at your card. That is one of the biggest nightmares in the city is getting behind a bus and not having bus turn-ins and bus turnouts. I've done some research in this, and I found that if the city's got the budget and the money, they can do one a year or two a year, and instead of all of them at one time. They're on Magic Mountain Parkway and on McBean and on Soledad. There are areas where buses stop at bus stops and traffic backs up where people can't get in or out of parking lots or lots for stores. They need to do some research in this, and if they have to do eminent domain on some of the property where there might be a bike path and some shrubbery, they need to do the eminent domain and take that property, build a bus turn-in, and finish it the way it was before. And they can't do it. They just need to have the money and put it into their budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Next question is for Tim Ben. To be proactive relative to the population going back to work, what steps should the city take to reduce traffic congestion around the city?
As you know, traffic is a huge problem in Santa Clarita, although not recently. Ever since the COVID hit, traffic's been great. And I have enjoyed going to work because I'm an essential worker, and I've enjoyed going to work in that light traffic, but that will not last. As soon as everyone goes back to work, we're going to be right back where we started, only because of the units that are being built, then that means we're going to be actually worse off. So we need to concentrate on a couple of different things that are really important. Number one, we have to build new major crossroads. Those roads are in planning. When I was on the council, I pushed one of them through the design phase. However, it is going to be very important for us to find resources, funding resources, so that we can complete those major roads. Without them, we are going to have very bad problems. The second thing we need to do is to work on finishing our traffic system, which is computerized, which we've been working on for several years. And that traffic system, once it's all tied together, we'll be able to synchronize the lights with the traffic, and we'll be able to do that in real time by actually connecting to one of the apps such as Waze or Google, and we can find out a way to connect those two things so that our computers can actually do it in real time. It will be very helpful. We are on the way because we spent a lot of money when I was on the council doing that. We're not quite finished.
Thank you, Tip Ben. Next question is for Dr. Akash. Since consensus, well, that's easy for me to say. Since consensus was established at a prior forum indicating Santa Clarita was not systemically racist, what could the city do to improve it further?
Can you repeat the question? There was a break in the connection.
Since consensus was established at a prior forum indicating Santa Clarita was not systemically racist, what could the city do to improve further?
Thank you, Rick, for the question. Look, I think the most important thing what a city can do is reinstate the trust with the people. Look, the trust can be implied or it can be explicit, but I think where the city council has not done the best job is to tell people that we are here for you, that we are one of you, we are public servants, we are transparent. And I think as a city council member, I would be much more transparent. I would be much more accountable, and I would sit with them, with every single person, if they have a question or concern. You have to have everybody on the table, whether they are coming from a stance or a policy where you don't agree with. You need to sit with them to make them comfortable, and then of course make the decision which is best for the city. So I think that part can certainly improve, and then only we will be more inclusive, and the city will take further will be further better off in terms of being more progressive and more prosperous. So I think these are the steps which city can do. Thanks.
Thank you, Doctor. Next question is Chris Worthy. You done? Just got that ready to go. You proposed a continued eviction. Let me try this again. You proposed a continued eviction moratorium on the community rental evictions. It was announced in last week's Signal that a group of property owners has sued the city. What considerations have you thought about relative to the property owners?
So relative to the property owners, I understand the position they're in, especially if they're in a tight position owing money as far as a mortgage on their properties. Also the reduced cash flow. Now, with that, I would say that the city should create some sort of loan grant or some sort of program using its reserve funding to aid or support those property owners and let them know that they're not forgotten. But the important thing is that we're in this together, and we really need to stand by those small businesses and families that are hurting in this time. And evicting those people in this time would be detrimental to their business and the local economy in this area, as that would uproot and send out economic activity that we would then have to replant. So the moratorium would have to stay in place. We'd have to work better with businesses to help them understand and to relieve them through any way possible. And if spending directly with the city money is the way we're going to have to do it, then we do it.
Thank you, Chris. The final question on, oh no, it's not the final question. No, we have Douglas Frazier next. Doug, as your number one issue, you spoke of situations where city staff had exhibited unprofessional behavior. Could you explain the situation and how would you remedy the behavior?
Yeah, the consensus was that it was not systemically racist, but there is a systemic attitude at the city. The staff, when a person goes to the public participation at city council and they make a presentation, then they expect a response. And lots of times city staff or the council members just don't respond and they walk away without any approach. Also, it took so long for the vets to get their memorial through and for the BMX bikes to get through. That was a problem. But my problem was with the affordable housing and the manufactured home communities. We've had issues and tried to update the ordinance, and the city staff has taken the attitude that they're not going to adjust this ordinance and they make improvements because they figure that that's the citizens' improvements and they didn't come up with the ideas, or somehow they have suppressed the ideas. And I also got some emails documenting the collaboration between the community development department and the manager's office when they were actually trying to respond to some of my questioning. The way to improve this is to improve the attitudes, and then you'll see improvements in other areas.
Thank you, Doug. This last question of first round is for Selena. You indicated you would lead a coalition of business owners, public health, and various entities and establish a COVID recovery. What specific activities could the coalition and city employees accomplish?
Thank you. Yes, the coalition of businesses would provide insight specifically to the impact to their businesses fiscally and infrastructure-wise. So the coalition would provide that insight as a group and in collaboration with public health so that, one, they could begin to reactivate and reopen with public health information and specific guidelines on how to do so that's aligned with OSHA, aligned with, of course, their safety, and then, of course, their consumer safety. The coalition would also provide insight on how it looks fiscally for them to recover. The shortfalls from the PPP program and, of course, the unresolved stimulus has left a big gap in what the needs of the business was at the time of the crisis and the estimated amount, and then, of course, where we're at now. There's a big disconnect. Without having that stimulus approved at this time, we're still waiting on that shortfall to be made up. The coalition would provide insight to that, make a request for funding, and then, of course, advocate for that stimulus to account for that. The employees would also be of interest here in their safety and of course, constant infrastructure change to respond to COVID. That's how I would recommend that coalition be collaborative with public health. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
so I pulled out another card, and this time we had a 9. So we're going to start with Selena again, but we're going to go backwards around the horn.
Okay.
We're gonna do what?
Go backwards. Come on, let's go backwards.
Okay. Selena, your second question is, you proposed establishing a community engagement and diversity committee. How would that differ from the Human Relations Roundtable currently being established?
Thank you. And when I made that recommendation, that was prior to the mayor's announcement of the reactivation of that. And so when I heard that it was reactivated, I certainly considered that aligned with the concept of creating an engagement, civil engagement and diversity platform. I know that those applications are currently pending. I know that there are leadership organizations within this community that have applied and specifically informed me that they applied for this. So it's exciting to know that that actually is already being put in place. I think what I would do if elected would continue to champion that, continue to lead and establish a role within that platform to obviously speak to the diversity that I come from, but lead in the unifying of the differences within that platform. That's a process that's going to take years. I hope that it's ongoing. I hope that it becomes more inclusive with more than just 15 members. I think there's much more diversity in the community that would speak to 15 members. And I, of course, would, ask for more engagement from the youth to be a part of that platform. I'm not sure if those applications spoke to the youth, the Gen Z, but that would be important for me to know. I have a Gen Z daughter, so it's important for me to encourage them to be engaged and involved just as much as I am. So thank you.
Thank you, Selena. Next question is for Douglas Frazier. It's a two-part question, but first part is, in order to have city council members closer to the population who elected them, do you support city implementing district-based elections? Yes or no?
Yes, I think districts will be a solution to.
Okay, then perfect.
Oh.
That was the perfect answer. Now let me ask the rest of the question. If the city decided to implement districts, would you support city council election primaries in order to have the top two candidates for each seat directly compete?
No, if you have primaries, you'll end up with a second election. I think that the top candidate will be able to represent the people with his or her vote or his account of votes. So I believe that the districts should be just the top candidate gets to be the representative. Not much more to say on that. Now we can also elect the mayor. So that would be an important thing. Now, if we do elect a mayor, then there would be an issue as far as a primary and a main election. So I would like to see the mayor also elected and then have a primary or a second election if the mayor does not get voted in the first during the primary.
Thanks, Doug. Next question is for Chris. How would you address the homelessness and the prospects of homelessness faced by our low-income senior community? What specific programs would you establish, and how would you fund them, knowing that the Santa Clarita is a general law city and cannot establish taxes?
So the fact that we can't establish taxes really hurts us as being a general law city. So I would move to push towards being a charter city to help alleviate that situation. We could also put forth to the voters certain measures that could help fund those issues. And we could find funding through budgetary savings in other programs. However, more directly speaking to the homelessness portion of the question, is the city needs to take direct action by working with the county and Measure H funding and putting that money to good use by donating just land, space for structures, a homeless shelter to get homeless population out of the streets and give them a place to better their situation, because that is the largest obstruction from them remedying themselves. And the low income senior population that is facing homelessness, I say we need to establish more rent control issues or rent control ordinances that support that population.
Hey, Chris. Dr. Akash.
Yes.
The city has a shortage of affordable housing. Low-income residents, particularly seniors, are being forced out onto the streets. How can the city enable the construction of affordable housing?
Look, Rick, I strongly believe that if a city cannot take care of its seniors and veterans, then that city is not a good city. We need to resolve that. Now, of course, look, what I will propose is that whenever any new development is coming, I'll give you a very quick example. Let's say somebody is coming in to build 1,000 houses on an X area. Then you basically beforehand you have to make a deal with them that they can build 10% or 15% more houses, slightly smaller but good quality houses. But they need to build in such a manner then that though that housing is affordable. If every single development coming in, has that plan, then I think it will certainly help the affordable housing situation in the city. Also, I think it's not only about the seniors, I would say for the teachers, for the firefighters, and for the people who do a good job and they are heroes of the community, the affordable housing in some capacity has to be provided. Look, I don't have all the ideas, but I think we should be innovative. We should listen to everybody who are the experts, and whoever comes up with the logical, physically responsible solutions, we should go with that. But the bottom line is seniors and veterans are to be taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Next question is for Tim Ben. The city has installed purple water recycling pipes in the road medians, but has not connected them to any water sources. While Burmite now treating and pumping approximately 60,000 gallons a day and putting it in the Santa Clarita River, would you champion recycling the water by hooking up the existing purple pipe? Why or why not?
Absolutely. And not only would I champion it, actually I did champion it when I was on the council. I spoke very loudly for it, and we brought down the water experts from the SCV Water Company, and at the time at Castaic Lake, which is the wholesaler. And I spoke to them and brought them for a hearing at City Council to find out why this wasn't being done and how it is that we could recycle the water. Now, my plan was, and a couple of council people had an idea that it might be okay. It was a cost prohibitive plan according to the water companies, but I didn't think so. And that is, you need to run a line and pump that water up to the top of the valley so that it can feed those pipes. They have to be gravity fed. There is supposed to be, moving forward, the ability to pump the water to a position where it could feed into those pipes. And where you have that water recycling now coming off the Burmite property, what you have is you're not very far up. That's the problem. So you could feed a certain amount, but not nearly enough to take care of that water in the recycled pipes. You have to have the gravity feed that comes down, or a small assist pump so that it doesn't take so much. Very much similar how they move the water from the recycling plant that's down at the bottom and send it up to Westridge area up in the golf course. And that's a lot of recycled water in and around the Valencia area there. So yeah, we should do it.
Thank you, Tim Ben. Next question is Ken. What's your position on the proposed Sand Canyon Resort?
That's a good question. I have to be honestly truthfully, I'm not really familiar with it. I guess we would have to do an environmental research as to whether it would be effective or would affect the homeowners in that area. There's a school there, Pinecrest, and there's hundreds of children. They will be going back there again in school buses, and I don't know if they would add unburdened traffic to the area. And so I think an environmental report would have to be done. I like anything, I would do my research and look into this. And so I'm sorry I don't have a better answer.
Thank you, sir.
Kevin.
Kelvin? Prior to running for city council, where have you been volunteering or interacting within Santa Clarita?
Yeah, Rick, thanks. I've gotten that question a couple of times. So prior to running, as I stated, I worked for the County of Los Angeles. In that role, as supervisor to Janice Hahn, as Deputy to Supervisor Hahn, our work oftentimes required collaboration across the county of Los Angeles. So as a resident of Santa Clarita, I've been involved in policy work that has expanded the entire county of Los Angeles, and that includes my home. As I've mentioned on other forums, those issues have included environmental justice issues. Those issues have included issues of education. I've heard you talk to a couple of the candidates tonight around issues of homelessness. I currently serve on some of the subcommittees for the city to address our homelessness issues. And so I like to think that my career has been in public service. And since being fortunate to join the county and moving to Santa Clarita in 2016, my work has always crossed to think about my own community and how I might be able to help some of those organizations here at home as well.
Thank you, sir. Next question is for Jason. In the past, Santa Clarita commissions have not been delegated a great deal of authority. How would you implement a public safety commission with the authority to make a substantial difference?
Thank you, Rick. You do it by when you set up the organization in general, or that committee in general, you give it the ability to make change. I see the Public Safety Commission operating very similar to what we see with the Planning Commission. In that, for example, when it's not just about policing, it's just not necessarily just about even area specific crime, but one of the big things we always talk about is fire protection and protection plans. I can see that committee having the resources and the ability to put together evacuation plans for places like Placerita Canyon, Sand Canyon, where we saw just devastation and issues getting people out of the canyon when the fire kicked off with just 2 egress roads. I find issues where they should have the ability to start planning and working with SCB Water to put water hotspots in areas where choppers and other fire personnel can access water in these remote areas and get a handle on putting out these fires before they start growing when they are that big, including being able to institute brush clearing jurisdictions, working with the other areas who aren't doing their part in clearing brush areas, and having protection plans for our open space. We have anywhere for, I think it's over 12,000 acres now of open space in Santa Clarita. And while it's an absolute benefit to our community to have the ability to enjoy nature the way it was intended, we also have to make sure that it's being protected the way it needs to be protected. And I think that commission should have the ability to do just that.
Okay, so I drew another card, and I got a 2, and you can see it's an even number. So I'm going to go down from Selena, who started, and go 1, 2, and start with Kelvin Driscoll.
Yeah, always think of Kevin and then add the L, Kelvin.
Sorry, excuse me.
It's all right.
All right, Kelvin. What issues or needs of the city should be included in the new 2025 city planning document?
Yeah, 2025 seems like it's far away, but it's not, especially when we have to think about the issues that are in front of us. Certainly, we will have to see how COVID impacts our infrastructure and our economy. And so as I think about our local and small businesses, and even what we learn in terms of the health impacts of a pandemic, I think those will certainly be issues that we'll have to think about. And that could include infrastructure investments like new medical centers, for example, as we think about what needs we might have for a growing city. I also think that as we think about the infrastructure demands, the digital divide comes to mind for me. As we are in a virtual environment for our students, broadband access is certainly an issue that has risen to the forefront. And so we'll have to think about, as we move to what will hopefully be a new education model, and as we think about how we engage students in a virtual world, what types of broadband impact or infrastructure investments do we need to make? We've also talked about traffic and things like the Cross Valley Connector. And so we'll think about what work will look like and what our infrastructure needs look like as it relates to traffic. There are a number of investments that we have now, including the Canyon Country Community Center. But there are also needs that we have even for our veterans. I'd like to see a veterans center in the old senior center And so we'll have to think about what our priorities are and what we learn from even the current health impact in pandemic now.
Thank you, Kelvin. Next question is Ken. Please explain if you support or oppose the city's acquisition of the ice station.
God. First of all, I 100% oppose what they did. $14 million for the ice station, which is a facility that went out of business because they could not have enough business coming in there to have our city buy this building, $14 million, and want to use it as not only an ice rink, but other issues like meeting rooms. To me, it was a tremendous waste of money, a tremendous bad investment for our city, tremendous bad choice of wasting taxpayers' dollars. You don't buy a business that you want to keep going as the same type of business that's already gone out of business in the first place. I'm dead against it. I think it was a terrible mistake, and they should have taken that money and used it to buy. I'll give you an example. On Soledad, the other side of Sand Canyon, there's an old medical building there that's been sitting vacant for years, and it's just probably deteriorating. That money could have gone to buy that and turn that into homeless shelter and assisted living instead of buying an ice rink for $14 million. So I'm 100% against it. It's just a very, very bad decision. And when I voted for it, I would have voted against it in a second.
Last I heard, by the way, Ken, that building was for sale for $4 million.
See, they could have bought that.
Go ahead.
Next question is for, we have our timer up again?
Yeah.
We had a
little technical difficulty here.
Anyway, Tim Ben,
Sure.
if elected, would you be in favor of having a city staff member appointed as an assistant to each council member? Why or why not?
That's a very good question. At the current time, when I was on the council, actually each council member shares a person that is designated to them. I think it'd be a very good idea to have a dedicated person for each council member. I always found that it was very difficult sometimes to utilize the staff's time in a way that was very personalized to the issue and to the council person. So sometimes that meant as a council person, I was doing a lot of work that's work that you were using on an issue, and then you would be spending your time trying to do a presentation. And if you're doing a presentation without the resources of the city, your presentation is not going to come out nearly as great as if the city manager is doing that, and he has the resources of the entire several hundred people that are working for him to put that forward. So yes, I think it'd be a really good idea for each council member to have their own dedicated staff person. I would take just a moment while I have a couple of seconds and address another question that was heard before, and that was about the liabilities and pensions. I want to let everyone know that when I was on the council, we actually had a fund, and we paid into that fund, and we continue to pay in that fund, which is set up specifically for that purpose. And so it's just a matter of putting more funds in there as we go forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Next question is for Dr. Akash. What proactive action should the city be taking to protect the community from wildfires fueled by the open space and county easements throughout the city?
Right. Thank you, Rick. Very important question. We deal with this situation every single year. I mean, lots of people's life get affected, businesses get affected, people become more anxious. And currently in this whole coronavirus situation, I think the situation even gets worse that way. I think we need to talk to the experts. We need to ask the fire department people. They will bring us the solutions. But as a city, we need to partner with them. We need to help them even more so that we can help them do their job effectively and do their job safely, whatever it requires. If it requires a technological advancement, absolutely. If we require to buy more equipment, that would be a worthy investment. Again, we need to. That will also help more small businesses and more people, more good people moving into the city, because right now some people are concerned that the fires play a very major role, and it can be very detrimental to the household, and it can be very detrimental to the economy. So again, provide whatever help we can to our fire department people. Ask the experts around the country, whoever have done this, and provide them with whatever it takes so that they can do their jobs safely and effectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Doctor. Next question was for Chris Worthy, but Chris had to leave. He's on the East Coast on National Guard duty, and he had a hard limit on when he had to leave at 8 o'clock. So Chris left, so we'll put his questions away. Now, the next question will be for Doug. In the past, the city has been accused of being involved in backroom deals. Examples include putting electric billboards on open space and many solar panels installed in manufactured home areas of Canyon Country. How would you propose to increase the city's transparency, of which some feel there is a lack of?
Yes, thank you. The city has their group that they associate with, and they try to avoid being obvious. And so they do like they did with the billboards, the digital billboards, which they did not have the public meetings in order to make the decisions. So we need to involve the public. We need to follow the Brown Act rules, and any decisions that's made, they need to come from a transparency and discussion with the public, not have the staff think that the best capital improvement is the way they deal with the businesses and the associations they have. So what we need to do is make the city staff open to the public, bring more public meetings, and make the public meetings more accessible to bring more transparency to these decisions. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Next question is for Selena. If you were elected, how would you continue to get input from the Santa Clarita residents?
Yes, thank you. That's such an important issue in my campaign in terms of civil engagement. I think I explained that as a candidate, I'm also a constituent, and I know that constituents pay attention to candidates that they can relate to. So part of the opportunity in being elected is that I have spoken to being accessible, transparent, humble in the role, understanding that constituents are innately intimidated by city government. And so humility affords and relatability affords them to come towards any representative of city council. So I think that accessibility has been a high feature in my campaign. Being obviously socially distant and having to do this campaign largely virtually, it's made it difficult to be accessible publicly, but I certainly have allowed myself to journal the efforts I've had in my campaign so that people can relate to me and have a better understanding of how I work daily towards promoting the issues of my campaign. So the main way I would do that is to continue to do what I'm doing now, is to remain accessible, humble, and relatable. Thank you.
Thank you, Selena. Next question is for Jason. since the population of Santa Clarita, of the Santa Clarita Valley has grown to 260 plus thousand people. Currently, we are within the LA County Fire District, and the SCV only has a total of 5 paramedic squads. Since city government has no authority over the fire department, how could the city provide increased paramedic services to our residents?
Thank you, Rick. Again, for me, that all falls back to the formation of the Public Safety Commission. It's an issue that needs to be discussed, and it needs to have input from, the various communities. Alan very often has written about the times where we hear, even in his own life, where people had to use paramedics to go across from the east side of town to the west side of town. And that's a big issue. And as Tim Ben mentioned earlier, the Cross Valley connectors are missing and have been needed for years. And as developments continue to come in and those roads don't get built, this is going to continue to be an issue. So I would hope that commission actually gets the chance to sit there and actually talk about things that can be done, even if it's short term. So while we continue to come up with ways and come up with funding mechanisms to build the infrastructures and the roads that we need, let's also look at the ideas of emergency services on the east side of town. Let's look at the ideas of traffic models where we can put paramedics on the opposite side of traffic. There's times when Soledad gets backed up. If you get an accident, you've lost your main east-west connector. And a lot of times the only way they can get moving is to get on, the east connector going west. That can be very dangerous, but there are ways we can come up with where we can do that safely, so that while we continue to move people across town, they can do so safely while we find ways to continue to expand services for the east side of town and continue to provide new services for the west side of town as we continue to grow on the west side of the 5 as well. So the idea of being able to provide services is to get it ahead of the game. Start thinking, bring people together now so we can start having these things in the future.
All right. Now that we've got back to Kelvin Driscoll, I drew another card and it was a 3. So we're continuing in the same direction we're going. I counted 1, 2, 3, and I got to the good doctor.
Right.
Doctor, next question. If you're not elected, how would you try to help work on ideas and issues that are important to you around the city?
Well, thank you, Rick. I genuinely love Santa Clarita, and no matter what happens in the election, if this good doctor wins, that's great. If I don't win, I think I'm still going to win in some other ways. The issues which I'm raising in terms of increased inclusiveness, better healthcare services, better mental health care services. We don't have a pediatric ward in the city, better traffic, homelessness resolution. I think if these issues are brought on the forefront, then I think I have already won the election. I will help whoever is elected in whatever capacity they need my expertise. I understand the city is thinking about having their own healthcare department. If my expertise is required, I'm at the service. I'll be happy to jump in whatever is required. If we need to have more mental health services, which I think we need to in the College of Canyon and in our schools, especially when children are stuck at home and with Corona has not done any favors to their health. If my expertise is required, I will definitely help it out. And I've always said that as a city council member, I've always said that I will be donating my 100% of salary to the local charities. And if I don't win in other capacities, in whatever way I can help with Rotary Club or other things, I will. And I like all these guys up there, I will be happy to help them out in whatever way I can. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next question is for Douglas. A key fiduciary responsibility of being a council member is to approve expenditures and a city budget each year. How would you gain an understanding of the complete proposed budget prior to giving your vote on approval?
Well, that starts every year. As soon as the budget has been approved, you start again with the next year and you adjust and keep adjusting the departments and the direction that the money's going. For the staff, you would have to really involve the staff and get the outline, look at the outline, and then go from the outline to the individual situations where the budget is more detailed, and then work from there. And you'd also involve the public, such as individuals that have the ability to make suggestions and get accountants or anybody in the public that wants to get involved. And you could have like a town hall meeting and sit down with the public every quarter. And then by the time the budget comes around, you've gotten the ideas that are mainly involved or inputted from the public. So you could have a more idea of where to go with the budget,
Thanks, Doug.
with the monies.
Next question is for Selena. Many residents believe city government is hostile to the citizens and demonstrates an us versus them attitude. What would you do to change this belief?
Yes, thank you. And I definitely experience this daily in what I do as a practitioner in human resources. Oftentimes, the employees feel that it's us versus the employer. So I would actually translate that skill set that I have to negotiate and mediate often. And of course, being that medium, that person that is the neutral party, provide a bridge and be that bridge. Again, I think I mentioned before, engagement happens when people see someone at the council level that they feel that they can relate to, that presents as accessible and available. I think the points Douglas makes are frequent in that community members feel that there's a disconnect, and if they don't have someone that provides that outwardly humility of being accessible, that does create a larger perception. So that perception starts with the way that you present yourself, the way that even in a campaign, the way you present yourself as being humble and for the people. So I think once someone sees that, a constituent sees that, they will present themselves in a way that obviously you set the guidelines on how to present an issue, present it in a way that is professional and not hostile, and you'll get that same response. So I would do it in that same fashion as I do daily. Thank you.
Thank you, Selena. Next question is for Jason. The city council seems to establish ad hoc committees as a way of pandering to specific groups, and then either does not call meetings or holds them in private. Would you be in favor of changing the city council norms to Brown Act all city committees?
I think I'd be in favor of moving various ad hoc committees that get formed into committees that are already following those procedures now. And again, for me, it all rolls back to my public safety commission. When we talk about ad hocs on homelessness, whether we form them on veteran services or alternative transportations, yes, these should be public committees. The point of them is to get public input, to get insight that we don't have at City Hall, to get insight from people who are living in Santa Clarita every day and experience these things every day and are looking for real answers and solutions to the problems that they face that maybe we won't see when we're at City Hall or living the lives that we all live. The idea of inclusion, the idea of bringing people together is just that. It's to bring them together. It's not to isolate ourselves, believing that we have the right answers all the time. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing with people, but there is something wrong with not hearing that disagreements. And if you don't get it in a way you like, it happens. Man, we're all people. People say things in tones. They say things in ways. Maybe they have a bad day and they say something that rubs you the wrong way. But as city council members, you need to look past that. You need to realize that the reason you're there is to listen to your community, to work with your staff, and make the decisions you feel are best for Santa Clarita as a whole moving forward. So I think the idea of taking ad hoc committees into public committees, into ones that the community is involved with, would be a good idea, and I'd be for looking into that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next question is for Kelvin. The city of Santa Clarita has a contract with the County of Los Angeles Sheriffs for police services. If elected, would you look into the city's contract and propose any changes?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Rick, for the question. So just to provide a little bit of context on this, this is our law enforcement function. And as a contract city, we buy those services from the County of Los Angeles. I think there's certainly no secret that not only is the Board of Supervisors unhappy with some of the things that are happening at the Sheriff's Department, but other contract cities are not pleased with what they're seeing from the Sheriff's Department. As a customer who is investing $28 million into the Sheriff's Department's budget, I think it's certainly incumbent upon us to be more active in the negotiation of those contracts. And I also have said on the campaign trail that I think that this takes civic engagement. And specifically what I mean by that is more conversation with our community members and our neighbors regarding what we want to see in terms of the future of policing in our city. Be it body cameras, be it a police force that reflects our city's residents, be it more say in the appointment of our captain. I think that this is going to take engagement. And I think as a major stakeholder, it's going to be incumbent upon the leaders of the council to engage with our supervisor. And then in return, have the supervisors and us along with her or him engage with the Sheriff's Department to bring about the accountability that we want to see in our policing. But we have to start that conversation. And it is disappointing to see that enough of those conversations are not happening now with our leadership.
Thank you, Kelvin. Next question is for Ken. Additional sports entities such as cricket, pickleball, and roller hockey, to name a few, have had a tough time finding places to play. How would you propose correcting this disparity?
Well, first of all, we have a open space initiative that we established where we have been buying open space around the city. We own that land and we bought that for the purpose where developers couldn't build on it. But there's no reason why we couldn't use some of that land to actually build some of these facilities. We have areas there. It's not going to hurt the environment, but it will definitely give us the chance to form these facilities. We have areas in the city that I mentioned before that would be great areas for parks, and both small and large. And something like this would be perfect in areas. I know there's a place in Soledad right next to the overpass for, I think it's Golden Valley. And there's a whole area there. I know there's utility lines overhead, but an area like this could be made into a type of a facility like that, so long as there wasn't a health hazard or environment problem there. But we have areas around the city, and I think that we could do that. We can also look into more areas up off of where we have our main building up on the Bracket Center and the water park there.
Thank you, Ken. Next question is for Tim Ben.
Yes, sir.
The Whitaker Burmite property land cleanup has been completed. What's your vision and what should be done with the 996 acres in the middle of the city?
The most important thing that we need to do with that acreage is, of course, to build the Magic Mountain Parkway across the center of it to complete a big hole in the infrastructure for transportation. So that's number one. The certain parts of that property are under restriction because of, even though it's cleaned up, there are some areas which have been restricted ecologically for certain types of things that you cannot build. You have to understand that the water table down below will continue to be polluted to some degree, and we have to make sure that we have a complete clearance for the water going forward before we allow any developer to come in. The problem with the development of that property in the past, and we have rejected before, is the fact that the developers have been unable and willing to take all of the liability going forward. And we have to make sure that whoever develops that property, whatever we're planning on building there, we get the liability completely cleared and that the city takes no liability whatsoever going forward. So that's really very important. I think there's a lot of opportunities for commercial and industrial to create more jobs in the center of the city, and then a strip right along the bottom where we could put some low-income housing, high-density apartments along the transportation corridor.
All right, I drew a seven of hearts. So I'm going to count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and start with Mr. Dean.
I don't like sevens.
When we draw again,
I'll take it. That's a very good question.
Your question, Ken, is what is your plan to address the lack of active sports fields and public tennis courts in the Canyon Country area?
Please ask that again.
What's your plan to address the lack of active sports fields and public tennis courts in Canyon Country?
Again, it's like we have open space. It's to buy facilities. I'll give you an example. I live in the American Beauty Classic Homes off of Via Princesa. We have a piece of land that's 18 acres of flat land. We've spent almost $200,000 in cleaning that up, flattening it out, and wanting to offer it to the city. This would be a perfect place for that. We talked about possibly opening that for soccer and maybe baseball. We also own, I think, 3 acres across the street from that, which would be for parking and possibly a bridge going across. But would be buying land like that or utilizing, again, part of some of the land that may be in the open space and utilizing. Our property, we've been trying to give this to the city and been talking to the city for a couple of years now. And they want to turn it into a park or something where we can have facilities like that. That would be something I would aggressively pursue. It would be to get the city to get back out there, look at this property that we have. It would cost them $1 a year. We're willing to give them 18 acres of flat land that has already been leveled out. At a cost, like I said, $200,000 to us. And so things like that is what I would do. And I'm sure there's other areas in the city that we could use something like that.
Thank you, Ken. Next question is for Tim Ben. 10 years ago, the city acquired the 3 municipal libraries. A board of library trustees was created with the city council filling those positions. The board was to eventually transition to a library board made up of citizens. When would you think this transition should take place?
Well, I believe this transition should have taken place several years ago. And I believe that that's one of the things that we need to do as soon as possible. The library board should be made up of citizens who are educated and passionate about that. The city council has enough things to do, and you'd be moving forward on your promises to do that. It hasn't been done yet. I would. And insisting that I would might just get done like some of the other projects that I've been able to do. The sheriff's station in a central location, a bigger one, brand new, that is being built now. These are things I fought for before I was on the council. And then while on the council, brought these things to fruition. The senior center, a big one in the center, which is done. Very beautiful senior center. And also the Canyon Country Community Center. I know that you all out there at the CCAC and Alan Ferdman carried that flag. And thank you so much for doing that, for all of the work that you did in collaboration and your committee to make that Canyon Country Community Center a reality. Without you guys working so hard, it would not have happened. But we got it done, and it is getting done, and it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be a real gem in the center of Canyon Country. I'm looking forward to more projects out there as well once I get elected. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim Ben. Dr. Akash.
Yes.
What's your proposal for addressing the homeless problem in the city?
Thank you, Rick. Homeless problem. Look, guys, I'm a psychiatrist by profession. I have treated hundreds of homeless people. I understand this issue inside out. I understand the core issues, what makes people go through this homelessness situation. And it's a complex issue. But what I will do, I will collaborate with the Los Angeles County. I will seek help of the volunteer organizations in Santa Clarita, the religious organizations in Santa Clarita, good people like Rotary Club. And what we are going to do, we are going to make a commission where I will be having a lot of social workers and psychologists who are going to go into the core issue as to why somebody is homeless. Somebody might be homeless because of the housing affordability. Somebody might have a mental health crisis situation which led them to the economic downfall. Somebody might have not found a good job. Somebody might have been going through an addiction problem. So provide people with what is required to be taken care of. At the same time, work with the bridges of home. Having said that, you need to solve the problem in such a manner that we resolve it, but we do not create a situation where we solve the problem for 1,000 people and then 1,000 more people come into the city. So you need to resolve it once and for all, and I think I'll be the best person to handle it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next question is for Douglas.
Yes.
Within the city's manufactured home parks, there's a large population of Spanish-speaking residents. What would you do to make the city council meetings more inclusive of this population?
This exactly what's happened with the lawsuit for the districts right now is that the city council is going to be going to districts in order to make the Hispanic population more inclusive. After we draw the districts, then they'll be involved in their own elections, or the Hispanic people will have the opportunity to get involved and put forth candidates that they can vote for and support so that they can get more representation on the council. And that will help involve their participation in the city issues other than just the mobile home parks. They'll get involved with the finances and the support system and the other issues that involve their type of culture. So they need to come to the council meetings, and I would encourage them to get involved with this districting issue so that they can get more representation and get more involved.
Thank you, Doug. And this question's for Selena.
Yes.
The COVID lockdown will affect the city's revenue stream. How do you feel this could affect city services, and what would you do about it?
Yes, so even in city services, that's an employer, and the effect of what's happening with the employees is that they're ultimately subject to obviously getting the virus and being exposed to the virus. So I would approach it the same way I do with companies in creating a protocol for COVID for employees that are potentially exposed to it, then also creating a return to work protocol, and again, enlist OSHA and utilize their safety protocols that they've already collaborated with CDC and public health, so that the safety measures within that particular entity aligns with public health and CDC. And then of course, if there are issues with an outbreak, that's addressed immediately, isolated, so that it doesn't impact the services to the degree that now the public has a public safety health, a safety issue. So there's a lot of layers to having to address that, but it definitely starts with the internal infrastructure of that department. And then of course, the education and compliance of anyone that's working within that system. That's always going to be the process in which any program is successful, is someone's compliance. And so that campaign internally is going to be important, as well as announcing that there is a program publicly. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is for Jason. Public safety involves more than just law enforcement. How would you interact with the city staff to ensure public safety programs are inclusive of all the agencies and entities within the city? And could you provide an example?
Sure, Rick. For me, again, I mean, it's starting to sound repetitive, but public safety, aside from upholding and defending the Constitution that we're sworn in as a council member to do, public safety is the number one issue, is the number one job of city council. It is to keep people safe. As we've talked about before, with the J team and the sheriff's department talking about opioid use and drug abuse, we always talk about the fentanyl crisis. We tend to talk about these things in passing, and we've gotten better about it. But I think we need to be even more diligent because we're facing things that are far more disastrous to families, to people who think that maybe they're trying something recreationally for the first time and they're getting laced with something that's far worse. We need to start looking at things, again, area-specific crime. We are a large city. And while we always look to be inclusive of everybody in every area, we need to understand that the needs of Newhall may be different than the needs of people in Saugus, may be different than the needs of Canyon Country. We all have the same goal at the end, and that's to have a safe, wonderful, and clean city to live in. But we have to make sure that we're including those areas in our discussions. So for me, I always talk about the Public Safety Commission. I think this needs to be a whole city council where we bring everybody from the community, we bring experts in their fields, and we bring staff to this table and say, look, these are issues we need to address, and we need to start addressing them now. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Next question is for Kelvin. You previously campaigned for the California State Assembly. Now you're running for city council. If elected, would you commit to serving a full term?
Yes. That's it. Rick.
That it? Okay.
That's it. Yeah, that's an easy one. I feel like I should get like a sub one after that one. After the whole round, I just get a yes. Yeah, I guess, here's what I will say, and use some more of the time up, right? I never expected to be running back-to-back campaigns. I think as any of these candidates can tell you on this call tonight, it is an effort, right? To think about a campaign and the investment that it takes, the impact on your family, is certainly nothing that any of us enter into lightly. And my decision to enter this race was guided by a couple of pieces. One, it was the calls for me to consider another run by some of our organizers, our local activists, and even our own assemblywoman. Two was some retrospective or introspective rather, thinking about my experiences, both personally and professionally, and whether or not I could be a value added to that council with my experiences. And third, as I said at the top of my answer, was having a conversation with my wife and my family about whether or not this was something that we could embark on as a family. And after all of the answers to that lined up, the answer is yes. And if anyone knows me, it's demonstrated in my career. I'm here to see things through to the end. This is not a stepping stone, as has been alleged in other cases. I'm here to serve. And so, yes, again, to your answer.
Thank you, sir. Well, we ran out of our 5 questions. Now we got to go to our bonus questions because we've got another 10 minutes before we have to start closing. So where are we starting out?
Well, we have a number 4. So I'm going to count down 4 from Mr. Dean. I go 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll start with Doug. And because number 4 is not here, so we'll talk to Doug.
Okay, Doug.
Yes, I'm ready.
Would you support an expansion of the number of council seats if the annexation of Stevenson Ranch and Castaic would be proposed?
No, I would just redraw the districts so that we would still have 5 council seats, but 1 seat would go to that west side of the 5, or wherever the population allowed it to be drawn, and then divide the rest of the city into 4 councils. One person representing 50, 60,000 people is plenty of a representation in this city. Right now, 5 people representing over 200,000, that's only 40,000 people. So if you annex Stevenson Ranch or that area, then that wouldn't add enough, I feel, to add more council seats and more expenses to support that council seat. So right now, I think 5 seats are adequate. You would just redraw the districts when they became annexed so that they would be happy with their representation. And you could get them involved with drawing the districts so that they wouldn't feel like they were left out. So 5 is adequate, and I would stay with 5.
Thanks, Doug. Selena, your question would be, currently our mayor position is ceremonial. Would you support the election of a full-time mayor responsible for the day-to-day operations of the city, and why or why not?
I'm sorry, your question broke up. Could you repeat that one more time?
Currently, the mayor position is our mayor position is ceremonial. Would you support the election of a full-time mayor responsible for the day-to-day operations of the city? Why or why not?
Yes, I would. I had no idea until I got into this race how the selection of the mayor occurred. And I found that quite unique in having lived in other cities where there was a separate process to elect and appoint a mayor. And I feel that it would then allow the city council to be dedicated city council, and then the mayor's office to be dedicated to, and again, be separate in the election. So like there's an opportunity then for the community, once again, always about the community engagement, the community would be engaged in electing that mayor, and that would be an office held under that circumstance. And then again, that person would know that it was from the community, and the community should always be first, should always be the deciding factor in decisions that represent the city. So that would be definitely something I would support, and certainly understand that this is currently how it is, but that would be something along the precincts that I would support as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Jason?
Sir.
Some of our current council members have served for over 20 years or more on the council. Do you support term limits of our council members? Why or why not?
Rick, I think I support term limits at the ballot box. And the reason I say this is this: whenever we discuss term limits, local level, whenever we discuss elected mayor or going from a general law city to a charter city, these decisions need to be based on, are we doing this because it's what's best for the city? You know, the common thing that I hear going around town when I'm out meeting the public and people that aren't maybe invested highly in local politics, their common thing they'll say is, you know, Jason, maybe I don't know who our mayor is. I don't know who our city council members are, but I do know that this is a great city, and I've loved raising my family here. I've loved living here. Yes, they have their own issues. They find certain things they'd like changed, but overall, the level of happiness in the city is very high. And I think part of that can be related back to the structure. We should never use elected positions or the ideas of having term limits to be based on just getting council members out that have been there a long time. I think if a council member is there who is doing a poor job, who isn't representing the city, or we feel that there's somebody better there to be representative, then they should get out and get involved. They should get engaged and they should run. And I think that's a lot of the reasons that we're all here tonight. We're here because we think we can bring a vision and a future to this city that will make it better. And I have great respect for those who have served Santa Clarita for a long time, but I hope to be somebody who can be on the city council to continue that level of success for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm starting to run out of questions here. We're trying to get down to final thoughts, but we're going to recirculate a couple. Kelvin, what's your position on the proposed Sand Canyon Resort?
Sorry, am I mute? Can't tell if I'm muted or not. And can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, so thanks, Rick. Sorry. When I think about the Sand Canyon Resort, there are a couple of things that come to mind for me. First, we certainly have to think about the zoning, right? We know that part of the history of Sand Canyon, even with the golf course, the zoning called for open spaces. And as we think about the special classification of the district, really looking for the preservation of those open spaces, we have to be engaged with the community around what any future development of Sand Canyon looks like. And we can't be so singularly focused on the interest of a developer, or the interest of the city council. I think that as we think about what the future of our city will look like, as you've heard so many of the candidates talk about tonight, it's going to require engagement. And I can't think of any more legitimate voices than those who live in and will be affected by any development in that area. And so I think we have to consider our needs. We have to consider what we see as priority for our city. You've heard lots of conversations tonight about the things that we need to do. But I think it first starts with a conversation with the residents.
Thank you, sir. Ken, what's your proposal for addressing a homelessness problem in Santa Clarita?
I don't like that question. Can you ask me another one? No, I'm kidding. Little humor there. Same thing that I had mentioned before. We have a facility, I'll give a couple examples. Up on Center Point Road, at one time that building there was a huge building that housed the homeless. The city took it over and turned it into city offices with banquet rooms. However, anytime you go up there, you're going to see that it's not being used. Prime example would be to use that. I would look into the feasibility of using that again for a homeless shelter. The facility on Soledad that Ellen said was for sale for $4 million. $14 million that was spent on the ice rink. $4 million of that could have gone to buy that facility and turn that into a facility for the homeless people. If anybody hasn't gone by there, you ought to go by and look at it. It is a huge 3-story building that's been sitting there for years with nothing going on. It would make and that would be one of the first things I would look into, would be to buy that building. If we have to buy it, we buy it for $4 million and turn it into a homeless shelter. It'd be the perfect place. It would affect people living around there. It's basically businesses around there. And I look into that. That would be the perfect place to have a homeless shelter.
Thank you, sir. Next question is for Tim Ben.
What do you think?
Yes, sir.
The county has contributed $18 million with a caveat for the construction of the sheriff's station. How will this affect the future contract negotiations with the sheriff's services?
Well, the negotiation for the cost of the actual sheriff's station and then the things that might be added to outfit it is a separate negotiation than there is for personnel and the ongoing costs that will be required for the station and for additional personnel. Obviously, we pay a lot of expenses now in the sheriff's station that exists. A bigger station is going to have increased costs. The more important question to ask really is, what will we need to do to increase the sheriff's budget as we go forward? We'll institute things like body cameras, which I fought for when I sat on the public safety subcommittee when I was on the council. And how much more funding will we need in the sheriff's department to supply them so that they can do retraining? Because we know that training is a big part of what's being talked about nationally that will be needed. We have to support our sheriffs 100%, and that goes for whatever the funding level needs to be, because there's nothing more important than public safety for our citizens. We move to Santa Clarita, or we live in Santa Clarita because we feel safe here, because this is our city. And it starts with number one, Number one, you have to have that kind of order. And yes, we have to look at ways that we can improve it. That will cost money, and we need to make sure that's priority one. So thank you for the question.
Thank you, Tim Ben.
Sorry, the timer froze. But you were in good. You did the right amount of time.
One last question, and we'll recycle this one. Dr. Akash, are you in favor of term limits for city council?
I will be. I think that, look, every city council member, I'm sure, has brought a lot of good things on the table. Some people will agree with them and some people will not agree with them. But I do believe that after a certain time, then a lot of people in the same position, they become somewhat stagnant. They are still good. They're doing good job for the city. But the new ideas, the new innovations should always be welcome. I cannot speak for anybody else, but if I'm elected, I will not be on the city council for more than 8 years. And I'm not choosing to run for any other office. I'm just stating that. Because right now, I do believe that I have futuristic plans. I want to bring faster internet. I want to make sure that the students have new scholarships and innovations and great things. But I'm sure that after a few years, there'll be somebody else coming in who would have much better ideas than I will be. Right now, I believe I am the best candidate. Maybe in 8 years, somebody else will be the best candidate. So, and I think the problem is that even if I am not the best candidate after 8 years, then because I have name recognition, then I will continue to win. And it becomes a challenge for the other person. So yes, I think that there should be term limit. And I do believe that the people after few years should, I would say, not more than 8 years on the city council. Thank you.
Okie dokie.
Thank you, sir. Well, we've come down to the final round of closing our statements.
Not arguments.
Not arguments, statements. We're done with the arguments. Statements, 2 minutes each. And which card did you happen to draw?
Well,
sir?
I happened to draw. Hold on here. I got this set back. I happened to draw this great two of hearts. Two of hearts. There he is. So let's see. We started with Doug last time, right? So I got 1, 2, and Mr. Kelvin can fire the round off.
2 minute closing statement. Thank you.
I cannot start a closing statement without first just giving it up to Alan I never caught on to how you did that. It seemed super complex. But in all sincerity, thank you to Alan. Thank you to Rick. Thank you to the members, of the Canyon Country Advisory Committee for hanging out with us tonight to talk about some really complex and yet meaningful policy issues. I can certainly say I've hung out with these candidates a number of times, and I think the thoughtfulness with which you all proposed your questions and asked them of each of the candidates, I certainly appreciate it. So thank you for the time. To my fellow neighbors, in just over a week's time, those ballots will be received in the mail. And as you're thinking about who to make your decision for, I certainly want you to think about who you trust. I'm here to say that I believe that you can trust in my personal experiences. I'm here to say that I believe that you can trust in my professional experiences as a member of an organization in a nonprofit space, working on homelessness issues of behavioral health, mental health, and prison reentry, and as a member of the county for the last 7 years, working in 5 different departments. I understand the complex nature of local governance. And as I've stated throughout the forum tonight, my priority is to make sure that we handle the COVID crisis, that we address issues of housing affordability and homelessness, that we address issues of racial equity in our city as we look to recover, making sure that we address infrastructure and investments in you, our neighbors, and also thinking about the question you heard tonight is, what does the future of our city look like? I hope that tonight I've given you that confidence in my candidacy. I am proud to be endorsed by organizations and members who also agree with that vision. I thank you for joining us tonight. Stay safe. And as I always say, wear a mask.
Thank you, Kelvin.
All right, Kelvin. Yeah, that was because I am a rocket scientist, or I was a rocket scientist.
Next speaker will be Ken Dean.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the advisory committee for taking the time and the dedication to form this. I think these are valuable forums that the public can view and learn from. 1984, I moved out here from Hollywood because I wanted to get away from the Hollywood, the traffic and all the stuff that went on in Hollywood, Los Angeles. I've lived out here for 37 years. And during the period I was out here, I've always been involved with the city. There's always been something that I was involved with, something I was doing. I became a founding father of the city. I worked very, very hard with the City Formation Committee. And I remember one time, one of the other people, I can't remember her name right now, asked each candidate if they would take some of their money and put it into the City Formation Committee, which I did. So I felt our city was very, very important. During the period of time that I've been out here, I've been on a lot of city committees. I've been on the roads committee. I've been on the, I'm not only the founding father, but I've been on the open space committee, which everybody is aware of. I've been on the hillside and ridgeline ordinance committee, protecting our hillsides. I've been on the city and chamber transportation committees. I was on the Revive Downtown Newhall Committee and the Walk of Fame. I was a volunteer Los Angeles County Sheriff for quite a few years. I was responsible for the Melrose that was defeated. If anybody's not familiar with that, you should look into it. So in conclusion, I just want to say that I'm going to ask for three things from the city, and in return, I will give the city three things. Give me your trust, give me your confidence, and your vote. And I will give you honesty, integrity, and dedication. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Next up is Tim Ben.
Thank you to the CCAC, and thank you to all of the citizens who are tuning in to this broadcast. You know, my whole life I've tried to serve, try to make a difference, a positive difference in the world. And when I was 17, even before a legal adult, I decided that I would like to serve my country. And so I raised my right hand and then swore that I would give my life for my country if I was asked. And that'll make you grow up really fast. So after 4 years of serving in the United States Air Force, then I came back and I went to college, got a couple of college degrees. And then I moved on and started my own small business. And I've owned a couple of those, which gives me a real toolbox for when I came to the city and for when we're going to reopen after the COVID. Very important. When I was in West LA for a few years and in Hollywood and Santa Monica, I worked with the redevelopment agencies there. And I said, hey, I can serve here. I came back to Santa Clarita. I said, I can serve Santa Clarita when the different neighborhoods were having problems in their neighborhoods. And so we had the neighborhood coalition that I founded and worked with citizens all over the Saugus Canyon country, Valencia, Newhall, everywhere. I worked for 20 years for a nonprofit here in Santa Clarita as my job, executive director of the Canyon Theater Guild. And I was known when I was on the city council for 6 years as serving the little guy, as being the guy that served everyone. You know, faith, family, community, and country. Those are the stars that I steer by. If you want to know more about me, timbenboydston.com. May God bless you and God bless the people of Santa Clarita. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim Ben. Next up is Dr. Akash.
Yeah, hi. Well, thank you guys. Thank you to Alan. Thank you to Rick. Thank you to Canyon Country Advisory Committee for inviting us. And I'd like to thank Chris actually and Tim Ben for their services. Guys, thank you so much. You are the heroes. Guys, I am a doctor. I am not a seasoned politician. I don't use political buzzwords and I'm not a part of many fancy committees. I know one thing for sure, that I'm a hardworking, solution-oriented, logical, simple, common sense guy who tries to resolve the common sense problems by meeting everybody, talking to people, and resolving them. I genuinely believe that when people from different sects, different society, different racial makeup, different ethnicities, different cultural backgrounds are brought up on the table, then a trust can be developed. Then people can somewhat meet in the middle, and the city will move forward in whatever capacity. I'm a uniter. I believe in uniting people and not, of course, dividing people. Don't play the blame games, just do your work, and the city will move forward. I have great ideas about and very objective ideas on our website, drakash4citycouncil.com, regarding resolving the homelessness, regarding the traffic situation, regarding helping our veterans, which is very important, our seniors, housing affordability, and other things. But the bottom line again is that we need to navigate right now our city through the racial tensions and also through the COVID-19 situation. I think being a doctor, being an immigrant, being a person with integrity, being a non-politician and a common sense guy, I think I will do a very good job if given a chance. Please look at, again, Dr. Akash for citycouncil.com. And it's a privilege to sit in front of you guys. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Next up is Douglas Frazier.
Hello, Douglas Frazier. Leadership is done through example. My mission would be to be a good example for the city and be available to all, including the public that doesn't seem to trust the city now. What we need to do is allow ourselves to be trusted more and be more honest and transparent with the public, the vets or the young people, as well as the businesses. Everybody should have an ability to be listened to. If we just shun ideas and only work with the people that are in the association of the council, then that's not a leadership position. We need to be friendly to all the citizens and gain their trust so that they will keep involved and become more involved with the city. If we get this change and the attitude adjusted, then you'll see major improvements in all the other areas that need to be improved. So the first mission is to improve the ethics and the respect from the city to the public and not shun them. So I'm going to lead and be a more available candidate and have an open door policy. So consider me the citizen friendly candidate. Thank you. Douglas Frazier.
Thank you, Doug. Selena Thomas.
Yes. Thank you so much, Alan and Rick and the Canyon Country Advisory Committee for this opportunity to participate. It's been a lot of fun to hear new questions and of course, definitely see all the other candidates. As a mother, as a businesswoman, as a very proud resident of this community, I'm actually honored to be able to step forward and participate in the process of representing the community and all of the community, not just one specific demographic or issue. I think that I've been able to reflect in my candidacy, my experience, my acuity for the issues, my obviously results in the business sector, and of course, my experience professionally in the social service sector. When I was set to franchise 6 Degrees, I was very proud to say that I had started and built a company in Santa Clarita. And then I was also very proud to set aside that franchise plan to support Santa Clarita and the small businesses that gave me an opportunity 6 years ago as a small business owner myself. And I feel that it's important to pay forward any opportunities that you receive and share the expertise that you have in this crisis, we've seen so many people step forward. This is a community that if it happens to one, it happens to all. And I'm proud to be able to step forward and lend myself to this crisis and this recovery. I would appreciate your vote on November 3rd for more about me and the things that are important. Selena Thomas for City Council. And again, I thank all the candidates for their integrity and their willingness to step forward and share the things that they have to offer to their community. I wish there could be 9 seats. So thank you again tonight for everybody.
Thank you. And last but not least, Jason Gibbs.
Rick, thank you. And to echo everybody, to Alan, to Rick, the Canyon Country Advisory Committee, to Chris for his service, and quite frankly, to all of our candidates. In such a hyper-partisan world, it is so nice to see just decency amongst people who talk to each other. And I felt that every forum that we've sat together. So for me, to all of you, thank you. I tell people I do feel very blessed to call Santa Clarita Valley my home. I was raised by a dad who grew up with next to nothing, who got to exercise the American dream and become successful. I was raised by a mom who dedicated her entire life to her children for the realization that she felt she was there and that held that responsibility to make sure she did everything she could to make sure we all had opportunity. And all 4 of her boys have been blessed to be successful in our lives. And after having my own children, I realized that I owed it not just to my kids, but to my parents as well, to find that responsibility that I now had to continue the successes that they've provided to me. That got me, it didn't get me just involved in politics, but it got me involved in our community. And as I've mentioned in most of my forums, I proudly sit on many boards, from education groups to business groups like VIA and being involved with the chamber, to being endorsed by nonpartisan candidates, including our supervisor, Catherine Barger, and many of our school board members who realize that I'm doing this because I care, because I love Santa Clarita. I have a vision and a dream to make sure that it continues to be the success that it can be. As we look forward, we need to make sure that we protect the successes that we've had and continue to bring new vision and opportunity going forward. Reopening safely and effectively from the COVID pandemic, revisioning the Portobello plan to bring about the center of town to be the community of the future that we all need and bring the businesses and jobs we need, limiting our long-term liabilities, and making public safety #1 with the formation of a public safety commission is why I'm running. Please visit www.electjasongibbs.com to learn more, and I hope to have your vote on November 3rd. Thank you, everybody.
Well, I'd like to thank all of you for coming and sharing your views. I think that's very, very important. I would ask something of you though. Let's not be strangers for the rest of the time. Canyon Country Advisory Committee, this is probably our first fumbling attempt at being online like this. But we intend to keep on doing it and keep letting people share ideas. So I would hope that you would join us in the future, and I'll make sure to be contacting you and chatting with you soon. So thank you very much. God bless you all.